Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by the one and only Michael Cohen. Let's get right into it with some breaking news. Donald Trump's sentencing, which was originally to take place on July 11th, has been officially postponed now to September 18th at 10 a.m. while the court determines if the Supreme Court's absolute immunity decision, which was reached on Monday, impacts the conviction in any way. Within hours after the Supreme Court decision was handed down, Donald Trump's lawyers immediately rushed into Justice Merchan's court, as I expected them to after I read that Supreme Court ruling. And they said, based on the Supreme Court rulings, discussion about evidentiary issues and the exclusion of certain types of evidence. The underlying conduct predates the presidency, or the underlying criminal conduct is unofficial in nature. If there is evidence introduced that could be determined to be official conduct, that evidence is supposed to now be, or is required to be, excluded by the United States Supreme Court. So I was thinking about the trial and where there were moments where Hope Hicks testified and Trump's assistant testified, and there were events in the White House that were talked about where Pecker was in the White House. And so it was obvious to me that Trump's lawyers were going to say all of those things, even if the underlying criminal conduct predated Trump's time in office. Any of the things that were introduced about Trump's time in office, under the Supreme Court ruling, there has to be a presumption that constitutes official conduct. And as an evidentiary matter, witnesses would not be permitted to testify about that or discuss that. So that's what Trump's lawyers did. The district attorney's office said, we disagree with that vehemently, but we recognize you can't have the sentencing without resolving the mess that was created by the bombshell Supreme Court ruling. So we're open to a continuance because you couldn't go forward with the sentencing without at least addressing the issue. And Justice Merchan now set sentencing for September 18th, and there will be briefing on the issue. And Justice Merchan says, I think cryptically, he says, the July 11, 2024 sentencing date is therefore vacated. The court's decision will be rendered off calendar on September 6, 2024, and the matter is adjourned to September 18, 2024 at 10 a.m. for the imposition of sentence, if such is still necessary, or other proceedings. Michael Cohen, we should talk about the Supreme Court ruling. I just want to get your reaction to all of it, because that Supreme Court ruling went above and beyond than what Trump was even asking for. Not just absolute immunity for core presidential functions, official conduct, but also evidentiary exclusion. What do you make of it?
So there's two parts to this that I want to sort of discuss with our brigaders. The first is, if this isn't enough to galvanize Democrats, if it's not enough to galvanize our brigaders and all the folks that listen to Midas Touch Network and Mea Culpa and so on, if it doesn't galvanize all of us right now at this point in history to get together and ensure that we are all registered to vote, that we get out the vote, that you make sure everybody in your house, in your office, and your neighbors, and your friends, and your postman, and whoever else, if that's not enough to do it, then I'm not sure what's going to get people out there. And I can't stand when I listen to, people talking about, yeah, but under Trump, we had $2 gasoline. And I'm like, shut the fuck up with your $2 gasoline. Our democracy, our democratic republic is at stake. And when you start to see what Trump is willing to do, what he says he wants to do, including things like public executions of Liz Cheney because she's a critic, because he doesn't like her, this is really something that Again, if it's not going to galvanize us right now at this moment in history, nothing will. And that includes leaving Joe Biden alone. I don't care if Joe Biden dies. I would still vote for him over someone who wants to destroy our democratic republic, to destroy our ideals and our country's future. All right? I'm so blown away by listening to people like Jake Tapper, who is making up crap. And then, I'm like up to here with the stupidity of it. The second that this decision came out and it was posted, you could only imagine how my emails, my text messages, my phone started to blow up. And they're asking for my thoughts. Michael, would you share your thoughts regarding this? So I turned around and I responded that the legal system has many challenges to overcome. The most significant is Donald J. Trump. And I want people to understand that this legal matter is not between me and Donald. It is between the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. I did every single thing that was asked of me in order to hold this man accountable for his dirty deeds. Now, I am certain that DA Bragg and the prosecutorial team will handle this delay and proceed with sentencing in an expeditious and just manner. Now, I want to be clear about something too, that when I put out this statement that Judge Merchan had not responded, he had not responded with the document that we had just posted for you, including the day of September 18th for sentencing, if in fact sentencing is even relevant. All right. This is a real problem. This is a real problem for those people who want to see Donald Trump held accountable. You see, as humans, human nature is to get angry at somebody who keeps getting away with everything, right? Don't we all want to see justice served? Because I promise you, Ben, as well as to each and every brigader that is with us right now, that if it was you, you would already be in an orange jumpsuit and you have already been incarcerated. Okay? This delay tactic that Donald Trump seems to be so just capable of accomplishing time and time again. It's upsetting because we all want to see. Now, by the way, if hypothetically the decision of Judge Merchan on July 11th would have been that he doesn't believe that a sentence of incarceration needs to be had, I would have been okay with that because the system has to be allowed to operate. And I have enough confidence in Judge Merchan that he will make the judicious decision. And if that would be his decision, I would actually accept it. I would say, okay, I mean, I did 36 months. How this man could get off with nothing, I don't fully understand it, but I would respect the decision of the court. Trump doesn't respect the decision of the court. He doesn't even want there to be a decision of the court. And the danger that exists right now with having a September 18th date for sentencing, I promise you, and I know that I'm right, the Trump legal team will file a motion asking for another delay a day or two or three before that September 18th date, claiming that the sentencing proceeding in this case, the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump, should be postponed until after the election, because any decision that could be deemed negative against Donald Trump would be election interference. That's the angle that they're going for. Delay, delay, delay. And the worst part is that if hypothetically Trump by chance wins the election, you do realize that he will never be held accountable for this. And how you know that is, even though that this is a state case, this is a New York case, and the president cannot pardon himself in a state case, what he will do is he will say, okay, you want to come get me? No problem. I'm here in the White House. Why don't you send your officers here to come have a nice conversation with Secret Service, the FBI, and the military? That's what he'll do. He will not, under any circumstance, freely accept responsibility for this case. I am so almost like tongue-tied at the timing and the result of this Supreme Court case, and how the only one case, and you guys had heard me say this literally since the day Ben and I decided to start Political Beatdown, that the only case certain to go to trial and to hold Donald accountable was going to be the Manhattan District Attorney case. And I said, and everybody laughed and said, oh, it doesn't matter. It's a ticky-tack case. It's not going anywhere. How many pundits did you hear on TV saying that it's going to be dismissed or it'll be a hung jury and blah, blah, blah? No. Donald Trump was found guilty. He is right now a felon, even though he doesn't have to suffer the repercussions that other felons do. But under no circumstance is he not a felon. Unless, of course, there you go. Unless, of course, Judge Merchan makes a determination that as a direct result of this Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that certain information should not have been presented to the jury, that the jury went ahead and that the jury used that information in making its determination of guilt, and that now they have to do what? Have another trial? That the verdict is going to be set aside, meaning that Trump is now no longer a felon? I mean, we could play with this ad infinitum, spinning it around and around and around forever. It's disappointing because finally what it does is it shows that there is more than certainly one set of laws in this country.
And no matter what the outcome is in the September 18th hearing, let's say Justice Merchan does sentence Donald Trump. Within 24 hours, Donald Trump will seek an emergency petition to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court almost certainly is going to stay any outcome pending full briefing, and the Supreme Court will apply what's called the Purcell principle, and they'll say we're too close to the election, we're going to stay this, and we're not going to adjudicate. And this is where you and I are not blowing smoke up our audience. We're not trying to sugarcoat what this Supreme Court did. The moment I read the Supreme Court order, in my analysis, I said, not only is it going to gut the Washington, D.C. case, not only is it going to gut Mar-a-Lago and Georgia, I said, people aren't talking about this. Trump's going to go right away, which he did, and he's going to say, based on certain evidence that was presented in the Manhattan District Attorney case about when he was in office, that evidence should not have been prevented, and therefore the verdict needs to be set aside, or there needs to be another trial. And at the very least, Trump will go to the Supreme Court no matter what Merchan does and say, Merchan's got it wrong, and Supreme Court, you need to stay it. And I think the Supreme Court ultimately would stay it. And if you're wondering, if you're saying That doesn't make any sense at all, Ben and Cohen. That doesn't make any sense at all because this conduct is clearly unofficial. Yes, the conduct clearly occurred before Donald Trump was in office. Yes, but you're not reading what the Supreme Court ruled. They went beyond that for Donald Trump, and I think specifically because of this case. And don't take my word for it. Just take a look at what Justice Sotomayor says in her dissent. Let's just pull it open so we can read what the case actually says, with the dissent explaining it, I think, in very clear terms. They write, "The court now confronts a question it has never had to answer in the nation's history, whether a former president enjoys immunity from federal criminal prosecution. The majority thinks he should, and so it invents an atextual, ahistorical, and unjustifiable immunity that puts the president above the law. The majority makes three moves that, in effect, completely insulate presidents from criminal liability. First, the majority creates absolute immunity for the president's exercise of core constitutional powers. This holding is unnecessary on the facts of the indictment, and the majority's attempt to apply it to the facts expands the concept of core powers beyond any recognizable bounds. In any event, it is quickly eclipsed by the second move, which is to create expansive immunity for all official acts, whether described as presumptive or absolute under the majority's rule. A president's use of any official power for any purpose, even the most corrupt, is immune from prosecution. That is just as bad as it sounds, and it is baseless." Now, here's the one I want everybody to pay attention to as it relates to the Manhattan case, where in the dissent they explain, finally, the majority declares that evidence concerning acts for which the president is immune can play no role in any criminal prosecution against him. That holding, which will prevent the government from using a president's official acts to prove knowledge or intent in prosecuting private offenses, is nonsensical. So it's undisputed that we're talking about private offenses here. We're talking about unofficial conduct in the Manhattan District Attorney case. But what Trump's lawyers are attacking now in their motion to set aside the verdict is, hey, the Manhattan District Attorney, they called Hope Hicks, who testified about communications that she had with Donald Trump in the White House. Remember that actual Perry Mason moment where Hope Hicks broke down and started to cry when she discussed her communications with Trump in the White House? Well, that's a communication between a president and their advisor. That's the type of conduct that would receive official conduct immunity. That can't even be in the trial. The jury saw it. That was improper. It needs to be excluded. Or remember when Trump's assistant at the White House testified how Donald Trump would receive mail and how normal mail would arrive versus the mail that was the subject of the kind of criminal conduct? Well, any testimony about how the mail normally arrived, that would be official conduct. She should not have been allowed to testify it. Then, and the jury heard that. That is prejudicial. Remember when David Pecker and others showed up at the White House and there was this party, an event at the White House that was thrown? That would be an official conduct, an event at the White House. The jury should never have heard that. They shouldn't have heard communications between Pecker and Trump at the White House. And the evidence needs to be excluded. So because the evidence was allowed in, that's improper under the third part of the Supreme Court's order. I'm just letting you know, and that may sound upsetting what I'm saying, but I'm trying to just explain what the argument is. Justice Merchan's going to have to address that argument and say, well, actually, all that stuff was not prejudicial, or it was harmless error, or it was all unofficial conduct. But that's what's at issue now. It's that portion of it. So I just want to be clear what it is we're talking about.
And one of the other things that Merchan is going to end up having to respond to is, it's not just that there was, for example, Hope Hicks. The question is, could the jury have arrived at the same determination if that information was not provided So if the argument is that the testimony that provided, say, the jurors with the determination of guilt on the 34 counts was the 2015, the August 2015 conversation between Donald Pecker and myself, as well as then all of the checks, then the rest of it it's irrelevant. But obviously you realize that if that's the decision that Mershon is going to make, we all already know whether Trump wins or loses, and especially if he loses, at no point in time is he not going to appeal this, right? So this is more delay. I mean, we could be looking at 6 months to a year before which sentencing could ultimately take place. I mean, this is absurd. It's absolutely absurd that a jury of his peers reached a determination after 6 weeks of a trial. And what's going to happen if the judge turns around and says, you know what, they have to dismiss the entire case based upon this new ruling? What happens then? Do you think that Alvin Bragg brings a new case at the expense of the state of New York? And what's going to happen there is that Trump, through his DOJ, can stifle that by defunding the Manhattan DA. I mean, this is so crazy where we're at. Could you imagine that this is what in 2024, on the 2nd of July, that Ben Meiselas and I, along with you brigaders, are having a conversation about the deconstruction of our Justice Department, about the erosion of our Constitution and our democracy? Holy crap. This is really no joke. And it's why I started out by saying, and I know there's a lot of folks that are with us right now that feel the exact same way. There's only one way that this country survives. Only one way. And that's to make sure that you are fully registered to vote. And come November, your ass is at the voting booth, all right? And that you're marking it down, Democrat, straight up and down the entire ballot, all right? Where we take the House back, we retain the Senate, and we keep the White House. Because then and only then can Joe Biden do something in order to correct this insanity that we are now living with. They need to put more people on the Supreme Court. Joe Biden and whoever, God willing, the new Attorney General will be, because Merrick Garland is a goddamn disaster. He should be a Supreme Court judge, but not an Attorney General. You need to have an Attorney General who is somewhere in between Merrick Garland and a Bill Barr, right? Somebody who's willing to get out there and to fight like hell for us and for this democracy. Because if not, my friends, we are, as a country, so fucked. We are so fucked that it's scary. It's scary to even imagine what this country is going to look like in 1 year from now.
Well, and ultimately, how important democracy is. It's not, when you're talking about Democrats v. Republicans, if Democrats were asking for a fascist outcome, would not be supportive of those policies. This is about not supporting a political party. It's supporting democracy and not both sidesing the issues. And there's only one major political party that's pro-democracy. The other party is outright saying things and putting forward a policy that is fascism. And that's not hyperbolic. And I know corporate media then wants to both sides that and act like, well, there's just a lot of political differences. I mean, no, just watch and observe what's taking place. And as we're approaching July 4th, as we're approaching Independence Day, there's a real question, which is our country as a democracy going to live to 250 years? That's the question that we are asking as we approach Independence Day and just take a look at what the dissent says from Justice Sotomayor so you can see what she says here. First off, she signs off by saying, "With fear for our democracy, I dissent." I've never seen any dissent in the history of the United States Supreme Court say, "With fear for our democracy, I dissent." And then just take a look at what she says in the dissent. "Looking beyond the fate of this particular prosecution, the long-term consequences of today's decision are stark. The court effectively creates a law-free zone around the president, upsetting the status quo that has existed since the founding. This new official acts immunity now lies about like a loaded weapon for any president that wishes to place his own interest, his own political survival, or his own financial gain above the interest of the nation. The president of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way, under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Ordering the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizing a military coup to hold on to power, immune. Taking a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, immune, immune. Let the president violate the law, let him exploit the trappings of his office for personal gain, let him use official power for evil ends. Because if he knew that he may one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold and fearless as we would like him to be." That is the majority's message today. Even if these nightmare scenarios never play out, and I pray they never do, the damage has been done. The relationship between the president and the people he serves has shifted irrevocably. In every use of official power, the president is now the king above the law. And Michael Cohen, though, what is very important, though, when we get rulings like this, when times get tough, that's when additional work needs to begin. And what I want to spend some of the rest of the episode talking about,
Ben, before you jump off that, I want to make a really important point here, something we talk about a lot on Political Beatdown. It's why I ask all our brigaders to share our time slot that, Ben and I are doing this, because the more people that we get, you've heard me say this a million times now, that together and only together will we be successful in ensuring that this hypothetical of the loss of our democracy is possible. The only way is if, in fact, we all band together and we create the community that Ben and I are desperately trying to do with you. And I say this because understand that when Trump makes these overt statements, like the one that he wants to do public execution of Liz Cheney, that he wants to employ SEAL Team 6 to lock up his critics and his political opponents. He wants to incarcerate President Joe Biden and the entire Biden family. He wants to go after people like the president of MSNBC, as well as others, myself included. And I say you have to listen to what he's saying, because now that he knows that he has this immunity, he will turn around and say that he is doing it as a presidential act. He's doing it in order to, as national security. He will make up something, and that will be the argument that will prevent somebody like myself from being released, as I was by Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein, pursuant to a habeas corpus petition. The things that they will do, the extent that they will push the law, goes further than what they even did to me when they unconstitutionally remanded me back to Otisville because I wouldn't waive my First Amendment constitutional right. We will be powerless within which to stop him from doing what Kim Jong-un does, what Vladimir Putin does, what Xi Jinping does. Now, this isn't an issue about you having my back. One of the things that I constantly say all the time, and I wrote about it in my book, Revenge, ad nauseum, is that if we do not do something about this, there will be no way for us to turn the clock back. That if, in fact, as I predicted, that Donald will never leave, that there will never be a peaceful transfer of power in 2018, when I said that for the 2020 election 2 years before, I am telling you with certainty that there will never be an election again that matters. When Donald Trump is emboldened to do things like he did in a document where he went ahead and they tried to have me sign that says no engagement of any kind with the media, including print, TV, film, books, or any other form of media/news. Prohibition from all social media platforms, no posting on social media, and a requirement that you communicate with friends and family to exercise discretion in not posting on your behalf or posting any information about you. This document does not exist in the federal system. This was made up specifically for me. At this point in time, he doesn't even need this document. He'll just go ahead and he'll just have somebody incarcerated because he'll make the claim that he is doing it for national security purpose. That's how damaging that this decision is made, that Supreme Court decision casts upon each and every one of us. So, yeah, we all have to be nervous. And when I started this podcast with Ben, and I talk about it all the time, and I say, the reason I fight so hard, the reason I get so animated over stuff like this, the reason why my case is going, a petition of certiorari to the Supreme Court in the next 10 days. The reason I'm doing this is to ensure that what they did to me never, ever, ever happens to you, that it never happens to another American ever again. And that's the reason that I fight so hard. And when I was discussing this with Ben before we started this podcast, one of the things I said to Ben was, we need to ensure together that this never happens ever, ever again. And we thought that the best way to get this communication out to the American citizenry is through something like a political beatdown, by engaging with you, our brigaders, whether it's through the live that we do right now, or through Patreon, where you get to ask me questions about this stuff, so we could have this community and build the community so big that there will be no scenario where Republicans can end up keeping the House and certainly not taking over the Senate or the White House. This is what we need to do, or, I hate to say it, we're done.
I think it's important that we remain data focused and we be driven by a logical decision hierarchy. And what I'm seeing from the corporate media right now in not talking about the Supreme Court ruling, and also their vicious vulture-like attacks on President Biden that's frankly devoid of the data, is pissing me off, because it is devoid of the data. We can all recognize that President Biden had a bad debate. I'll go a step further. It was an awful debate. But he's been an incredible and great president. He gave an incredible and great speech in North Carolina. And I don't judge somebody who supports our democracy and has accomplished historic things based on one bad night. And by the way, if you wanted to give this energy that I'm seeing the corporate media and others give to President Biden, if you want to go there, which I don't think you should, but if you want to go there because he stuttered and looked really bad, also Trump looked horrible, and we'll talk about that. Give that same energy. You should probably give more energy than you give to someone who's got a stuttering problem, to somebody who's a rapist, someone who's found liable for sexual assault. you should probably put those editorials in there where someone's found liable for sexually assaulting a woman, someone who's a convicted felon, someone who's an insurrectionist, someone who mishandled COVID, resulting in millions of deaths, and saying, like a miracle, it's all going to go away. Someone who posts things like this every single day, like this is what he posted. This is what you were referencing, Cohen. He goes, Elizabeth Lynn Cheney, she's a Republican, she's in his party, is guilty of treason. If you want televised military tribunals, read truth. Or Donald Trump posts this, where we go one, we go all, which is the QAnon slogan. So if you want to give that energy to President Biden for a bad debate, meanwhile, Trump's debate was bad as well, and he lied about everything. Give that same energy, if you care about our democracy, to the person found liable for sexual assault, the convicted felon, the insurrectionist, the civil fraudster, the person who's bankrupted everything he's touched, the person who's caused over 1 million deaths because of mishandling COVID. And then, by the way, and we'll talk about this after the break, you have the corporate. I hate polls to begin with. I hate polls. I don't like talking about polls on these shows. Sometimes I bring them up because when I see the corporate media cherry picking a poll or a poll that no one's ever heard of the pollster, look at Democrat internal numbers. Who are these people that they're not even credible polls that you're pushing. When you look at the credible polls that are out there, and again, I'm only showing you this because the whole corporate media narrative is the sky is falling down. Okay, you take a look at the Reuters Ipsos poll, and you've got Biden and Trump 40-40, and then Trump beats anybody else according to that poll. So that's the sky is falling when you see a poll like that. Or how about the TIP, which is an A+ poll, TIPP, the TIP poll, which has been very accurate, which has Biden up 2, and the poll was, this is a poll from July 2nd, 2024. And I don't like talking about the polls, but if you're going to push some one-sided narrative that the sky is falling because of polls, and you have the two credible polls having Biden in the lead or tied, like, what are you talking about? That's my issue. Focus on the data and stop pushing these narratives over and over again and then leading to becoming a self-fulfilled loser because you're acting in a panicked way versus a data-focused way. And we're always going to focus on the data here. I want to talk about that and more. Let's just take our first quick break of the show.
A small regret is slouching in the dentist chair thinking, I should have brushed and flossed better. A big health regret is listening to your doctor and thinking, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Better health today and when it matters most is why I take Field of Greens. Field of Greens is unlike any fruit and vegetable or green product. Field of Greens isn't watered down extracts. Field of Greens is an organic superfood. It's whole fruits and vegetables. Each fruit and vegetable was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and the immune system. And only Field of Greens is backed by a better health promise. At your next checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Don't look back and say, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Field of Greens is key to better health today and when it matters most. Let's get you started with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code BEAT. That's promo code BEAT at fieldofgreens.com. And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Rhone. If you're like me, you understand the pains of finding out what to wear. Let's face it, most clothes are uncomfortable or too tight or never actually the size that you really are, and not to mention the annoyance of trying to put together a good outfit. And when you finally do have a good fit, you can only wear it for a few hours before you have an important meeting or dinner, and then you have to change. Everyone wants to dress their best and look good at all times because, frankly, it's a confidence booster. So here's the deal. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. And here's why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with the Commuter Collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone Commuter Collection. Rhone's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Roan's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. It's that easy. With the Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I absolutely love Roan. This has truly become my go-to commuter fit. We're on the move a lot, whether it's jumping from meeting to meeting or catching a flight or an important dinner. The Roan Commuter Collection has never let me down. The versatility and overall comfort of the collection is undefeated. And even after I wear it all day, I still feel super fresh because of that Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. The Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. So right now, head to roan.com/Cohen, that's Cohen, and use promo code Cohen to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/Cohen, Cohen, and use code Cohen. It's time to find your corner office. And now, back to the video.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. Shout out to our sponsors. Great ad reads right there. And Cohen, you and I didn't really, we've been so busy over the past few days, we haven't really spoken about our respective positions on the debate about President Biden. Although I heard what you said at the beginning of the show, which kind of mirrors exactly where I'm at, which is I look at the body of work. I also am looking at the people who are now kind of just leaking things that are not even based on the data. And it's like, focus on what needs to be done right here. If you want to focus on the data as well, President Biden has raised more money than he's ever raised before post-debate with small dollar donors speaking with their pocketbooks. You have the base itself. And I know how the media and elites want to speak for like the base and, oh, here's how low information voters really feel. Well, you're not listening. And first off, low information voters to me is just a screwed up name in general. But like you're talking about perhaps calling Americans low information voters to begin with is one of the things that you probably shouldn't do, because I'd call them hardworking Americans who have real issues that they have to deal with and are afraid and scared. And I think it's important that we take a step back and again, that we reflect on the data and that all, and again, if the media is going to be pushing polls to try to push narratives, I only show those other polls to say I can equally push the narrative that the main polls have Biden ahead of Trump or have him tied. But sure, I could find ones that have him losing as well. I could find polls that no one's ever heard of and push those. I can show you the CNN poll, which is, by the way, the same today as what it was in April. That's not, to me, was ever the kind of metric, but you see, Cohen, how they're pushing it. And look, I want to confront two comments that came our way during the break as well, that were critical of what we're saying, because I'll never shy away from that. Someone wrote that wasn't stuttering. Biden wanders away, jumbles words, selected the official debate rules. Let's be honest about reality. Okay, sure. What's the next point though that we're trying to make there?
You know what the mistake that this individual is making? And look, we always will get MAGA trolls that they do this.
I don't think that's a MAGA troll. I think it's a concern.
No, we have plenty of MAGA trolls that are on here, and they do this because this is their fun, right? They think that this is some sort of a joke. It's a joke until you have no more democracy. It's a joke until you think that Donald Trump, as a dictator, as the monarch, supreme leader, the Führer, is going to let you keep your guns. Do you know how many idiots that I hear turn around saying, I'm pro Second Amendment? I don't give a shit if you're Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment. I don't care if you're pro. It makes no difference to me. By the way, you should respect all the amendments. And if you want to own a gun, sure, as long as you're competent within which to have it, God bless. You really understand that there's no dictator in this world that allows his populace to be armed. You know the reason why? Because they don't want them getting together, like in the community that we're building here, to come after you, the king. So they take your guns. That's why, for example, England, they don't allow firearms. And that's an old rule that came about because the only people who can have weapons is supposed to be the king's army. Don't you people understand it, that whatever rights that you think that you have under a dictatorship, you have no rights? You have the right to shut the fuck up. You have the right not to say anything disparaging about the king. You have the right to die if you do. So wake the fuck up, MAGA morons. And you know who I'm talking about. You stupid assholes with 3 teeth and 4 brain cells that don't understand. One day you're going to have to answer to your family down the road, whether it's your children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, how you did, not only did you do abso-fucking-lutely nothing within which to protect our sacred democracy, this incredible experiment, but you actually assisted a maniac in taking over and destroying our democracy. Do you understand what that's going to be like? You understand that your own family will despise you for your level of stupidity, especially with the fact that not one thing that Donald Trump is talking about doing has any benefit to you whatsoever. All right. And the fact that this guy can stand up on a stage and lie from the first question to the end, the fact that he can turn around and make a statement like, migrants are stealing black jobs. It is so fucking offensive to me. On my TikTok last night, I think I spent an hour just going through that entire scenario, literally talking about this ad nauseum. I cannot believe that a man who is running for the presidency, who keeps making claims, false claims, that he is getting more and more of the black population to vote for him and to become Trumpers and MAGAs. What? Seriously? So when you turn around and you say something stupid like, that the migrants are coming after black jobs, you're talking about, as a black job, the presidency of the United States of America? The vice presidency of the United States of America? How about a neurobrain surgeon, right? I mean, because you have neurobrain surgeons, right? Like Ben Carson, right? Are they going into, or is he just saying something racist and demeaning, talking about that it's only menial labor, right? That they're going after their menial labor job. I don't even know what black jobs even means. And shame on Jake Tapper for so many things, including some post that he put out there about how a whole bunch of the Democratic leadership in Washington is meeting in order to put together a demand that Joe Biden bow out and so on. Look at the economy, stupid. All right. Another day today of the highest stock market in U.S. history. Look at all of the things that Joe Biden has accomplished, bipartisan things, not simply just by presidential declaration, right? He's literally doing it bipartisan. And they're also doing, of course, on their own. For God's sakes, the CHIP, I can go on and on. CHIPS Act, Infrastructure Act, you're talking about getting rid of a whole slew of student debt. You're talking about the drug pricing. I mean, you're talking about our economy, our GDP 2.5 times greater than that of any other country. And the next one after 2.5 times less than us is China. And now you hear to Trump with his stupidity, get rid of the tax base altogether. No more taxes, only tariffs. What? I mean, at some point in time, even MAGA has to wake up and say, you know what? I get it. I'm all about white privilege and so on and so forth. But you know what? This isn't really working, and it's not going to be good for me. It won't be good for my family. Won't be good for future generations. Enough already. Just enough.
And look, and my analysis is never a panicked one. It's always a data-based one, and I want to make decisions based on the data. As I mentioned, I don't think that the polls are great indicators. But if you want to push polls on me, I'll push polls back on you. So if you want to tell me what the choir is going to do or where the people are, and I say to you, hey, you know, the best poll out there, which is the TIP poll, has Biden up 2 and has Biden gaining since the debate. Again, I don't put a great deal of weight into this polls, but if you're trying to panic the American people based on your CNN poll, which hasn't changed a bit since April, their CNN April poll is the same as it is today, then I'm going to show you back the TIP poll. I'm going to show you the Reuters Ipsos poll. So when you go and you give me all the other people in your dream scenario that you'd like to see out there, I'm going to tell you, as against Trump, the data suggests that Biden performs the best under the Reuters Ipsos poll right there. If we want to talk about what the choir's doing, what the base is doing, Biden's raised like close to $150 million since the debate from the base. The people who watch that says, you know what? We know what he's done for us. We know with the CHIPS Act. We know with the PACT Act. We know with infrastructure. We know that things could be better with the economy, but America's leading the world, number one. Like with the current soccer tournament, if you were the number one team in the tournament, you don't have the media saying, well, yeah, you score the most goals in the tournament and you got the best record. However, we think you're actually in last place. No, America is leading the world right now in GDP growth, in drilling, and we're on the forefront of actually dealing with climate change as well, which Trump says isn't even real. We brought back the semiconductor industry. Over 1 million veterans are getting life-saving care right now that they wouldn't have gotten based on the PACT Act, where the Republicans were fist bumping each other and celebrating taking away health care from them. So it's like, let's just focus on the data. And here's a data point as well. And this comes from Professor Lichtman at American University, who has 13 criteria, which has
My
been
alma
able,
mater.
which has been, I love it. I was in GW, so I was right by you, and then I was in Georgetown Law. And so Professor Lichtman has predicted like every presidential election. He goes, look, here's what you should be focusing on, the data. Stop with the BS. Watch what he says here, Cohen, and then I want to get your take on it. Play the clip.
All of these pundits and pollsters and analysts that you see on all the cable channels and all the networks have no track record in predicting elections. And yet they come on and they claim they know how this debate is going to affect the outcome of elections. They have no idea. It's sports talk radio. It may be entertaining, but it has no scientific basis.
So what is the impact, you think?
Zero. Debates are not predictive of outcomes. Hillary Clinton won all 3 debates, still lost. John Kerry won all the debates, still lost. Barack Obama got trounced, 72 to 20% in the poll, worse than Biden, and went on to win. That's why we rely on the 13 keys which tap into the structure of how elections really work. And they show that Democrats' really only chance to win, contrary to everything you've heard, is with Biden running. Look at the incumbency key. Biden checks that off. The contest key, he checks that off. He was uncontested. It takes 6 keys to count out the White House party.
But you know,
that means
Alan,
of the remaining 11 keys, 6 would have to fall. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Biden doesn't run. They lose the contest key. They lose the incumbency, and only 4 more keys would have to fall.
I think that that's actually kind of what I was trying to get at here, is that the problem right now is that the Democratic Party is considering replacing Biden, mostly because it's unclear whether or not he actually physically can carry out the rest of this campaign and put up a fight against his opponent. So that seems like a fundamentally different thing than some of the items that you have in your rubric.
It's a huge mistake. They're not doctors. They don't know whether Biden is physically capable of carrying out a second term or not. Remember, a lot of folks were saying the same thing about Ronald Reagan, who was, 73, and age was very different then. And they said, he's not capable of carrying out another term. He won 49 states. So this is all foolhardy nonsense. The same pundits and pollsters who led us down the primrose path in 2016 are giving the Democrats horrible advice. This proves what I've been saying for years. Republicans have no principles. Democrats have no spine. Republicans are sticking with a blatant liar who lied for every 1 minute and 20 seconds of that debate. Donald Trump put out a lie. And by the way, lies stick. Debate performances can be overcome. And now the first sign of adversity, the spineless Democrats want to throw under the bus their own incumbent president. My goodness.
Okay, so hold on. First of all, I dig Professor Lichtman, all right, and so on. But Abby Phillip, she put into his head that, the Democrats are looking to get rid of. That's bullshit, all right? The fact that just because people are talking and say, is he up to the task, doesn't mean that they already want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is so stupid. And the fact that it took over all media, all forms of media, print, television, social media, the fact that they do this all the time. Why? Because Abby Snorrex, Phillips turns around and says that. CNN is so out of fucking control with their nonsense and their spewing of horse shit. Why? Because Dana Bash and Tapper did a fucking shit job as moderators? Enough already. Why are we even paying any attention to them? They are so desperate trying to become Fox Light that they have fucked up their entire broadcast. Their ratings are in the fucking toilet. In the toilet. That's why I once turned around and I said, I'll never forget, they should come with a bag of cash for somebody like Jeff Zucker. Give him $1 billion, because when Zucker was running CNN, they were really profitable. They were spot on. There was none of this nonsense. You don't do a debate and then just sit there as a question reader. This whole thing is garbage. It's nonsense. Ben, I'm with you. 2 fingers salute today goes to the 5 members of the Supreme Court that wrote the opinion on this ridiculous presidential immunity, fucking up our entire, not just our entire day, but could fuck up our entire democratic republic. So Supreme Court guys, fuck you already. Seriously, it's country over party. It's country over principle. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's why you are a Supreme Court judge for life. It's not supposed to be what the Heritage Foundation wants. It's not supposed to be about denigrating a certain class of people. It's not supposed to be about stripping women of their rights. It's not supposed to be about denigrating black people. Enough already. It's just enough. And the President of the United States should not, under any circumstance, have any rights different than that of you and I. Plain and simple. There's one set of laws for all Americans. And anybody that thinks differently, including those members of the Supreme Court, you're just plain fucking wrong.
I'm going to give a 2-finger salute today to the corporate media for their horrific reporting on everything. And I don't fault them if they want to go hard on Biden. Let me be very clear about that. They want to go hard on him. You're the media. You're the fourth estate. Go be hard on him. He had an awful debate. Do what you got to do. But you need to then use the power of your pen to treat an adjudicated sexual assaulter in Donald Trump, a convicted felon, somebody who led an insurrection against our country, someone who's on tape bragging about sexually assaulting women, someone who hung out with Epstein, someone who's bankrupted most of the companies that he has touched, someone that so significantly botched the handling of COVID, and then he treats it like a mulligan, like, oh, it would have been great if COVID didn't hit our shores. You were in charge. What are you talking about? You told people to inject bleach, and like a miracle, it's all going to go away. So for the media to have one set of rules as it applies to Biden, and you can see the editorial after editorial after editorial nonstop all day, where if you actually look at the data, there hasn't actually been any material shift post-debate at all. So they're running with that. And then they refuse to hold Donald Trump accountable. They want the clicks, the media, they want the money, they want authoritarianism because they think that's going to be beneficial to their bottom line. And that's why I'm giving my first ever two-finger salute to the corporate media, which has demonstrated what a complete and utter failure it is. And frankly, it's why our mission here at the Midas Touch Network needs to continue on and continue to grow. And thanks to everybody for helping us make that a reality. Go to patreon.com/political beatdown, patreon.com/political beatdown. Michael Cohen and I will arrange probably after the 4th. We'll do a Zoom meeting where we can meet.
Guaranteed. Right after
You and I will do a Zoom meeting if you wanted to meet Cohen and myself. Check us out, patreon.com/political beatdown. Check out store.midastouch.com for some great pro-democracy gear, 100% union made, 100% made in the USA. Make sure you subscribe to the Mea Culpa podcast, Mea Culpa Blue, wherever audio podcasts are available, search it and subscribe to the Mea Culpa podcast. Also, Michael Cohen has his own YouTube channel now at The Michael Cohen Show, almost at 50,000 subs in about under 2 weeks.
Today.
Make sure you subscribe right now. Go search at The Michael Cohen Show. It's also a link to that is in the description. Subscribe to Cohen's YouTube channel. Let's grow that. Look, Midas Mighty. Look, Beatdown Brigaders. We are in this together. Let's lean on each other. Let's never forget the mission here, which is to protect, preserve, and defend our democracy. Thanks for watching and have a good day.